Hi, welcome to Vegetables, day 47. So I'm just going to do a quick review of my day because I watched the Truth About Weight Loss Summit again today. And I didn't take any notes on the first speaker, but the second speaker was absolutely fabulous and outstanding. Chef AJ took 8 pages of notes. I took 9. So hopefully I can go over, quickly enough, but it was fantastic, outstanding information, and I definitely want to share it with you guys. But to start off with the weigh-ins for today. This morning I was 242 or 243 something. I didn't write it down. And of course I can't remember anything, so I have no idea. I just know it was over 241. So it was either 242 or 243. I just weighed myself and I was 244.8. So, held pretty steady for the day. Disappointed that it's over 240 because I was really hoping to be under 240 by now. But I just have to stay the course, and I know I'll get there. As far as eating, I did not have too bad of a day today. I started the day off with banana and peanut butter oatmeal with toast. On my toast, I did not put any butter, but I did put a tiny bit of jam, 4-fruit jam. For lunch, I had leftover stew. And then I was still, a little bit hungry. So I also had a pear. Good choice, right? I did eat my last Luna bar, but I don't remember if it was today or last night after I did my video. So somewhere between my last video last night and right now, I had the last Luna bar, which was a blueberry one. Then for dinner, it could have been better, but it was okay. I had 3 pieces of sausage frozen pizza, and I was still hungry. So instead of eating more pizza, I chose to have a bowl of Fiber One cereal with almond milk. So, like I said, could have been better, but not bad. I mean, for choosing to eat at home instead of going to fast food, I think I did okay. Need to do better, but I did okay. And on that note, what I did today is I dug myself out. Over the last couple days, we got about 6 inches of snow. And, and it's been well below freezing. Well, today it got up to the mid-teens, and it was sunny, so I felt that it was a good time for me to be able to get out and dig us out. So my grandson and I snowblowed and shoveled, and we also brought in some more firewood because we actually ran out in the house. And we had brought in a lot of firewood. It's just been so cold. And even with the wood stove, not a fireplace, it's a wood stove. Even with the wood stove going full blast, our furnace is still run as backup. And we keep it at between 70 and 72 degrees. It never goes above 72. Usually it's around 70 degrees. And right now, just to give you an idea, where'd my phone go? Oh, there it is. Right now, it is 2 degrees Fahrenheit. I know there's lots of parts of the country that are well below that, but for me, that's cold. And it has gotten colder here. I think tonight's low is supposed to be like 14 below or 7 below or something like that. But after I got done with that, which was a lot of work, I took a little bit of rest, and then there were some things that we'd run out of, so I had to go to the store. So I went to the store, and I came home, and I was, really tired by that point, just exhausted. So while I was at the store, I did buy the pizza, but I also bought myself a whole bunch of vegetables to take me through the next week or so. So fingers crossed to actually eat them. I'm sure I will. But didn't really buy that much of the bad stuff. I mean, mostly I bought vegetables. I bought the pizza. I bought some French bread pizza for Scott, which he requested. I bought Scott some sausage biscuits, which I don't eat. Or if I very seldom. I think last time I bought a box of them, I had one. But this time I'm not going to have any. Because I'm determined to make this change. But that's it for my day. Oh, and then I had to finish the presentation that I watched, because since it was so jam-packed full of information, and I had to keep pausing it to take the notes, I didn't get it finished. And I've only watched 2, and there's 3 more presentations for me to watch. So hopefully I can get this done really quickly and uploaded really quickly, and can finish watching them. Because one of them is Cyrus Kabata again, and his partner Bobby. Not his life partner, but his business partner, Bobby. They've done, they both have type 1 diabetes. So I really hope I can get through to their presentation. But the presentation that I took all the notes on, as I mentioned, Chef AJ took 8, I took 9. It was by Brenda Davis, and she is a registered dietitian. She lives in Canada. And her presentation was on deconstructing Keto and Paleo diets. And she said the 2 of those diets, or she started off with kind of an overview, that both the keto and new paleo diets are both centered on eliminating or reducing carbs. But she wanted to, answer the question of what is the long-term effect of these 2 diets. And so she started off with the keto diet. And if you may or may not know, what the keto diet is you eat low carb, high fat, and what you're trying to do is generate ketones and put your body into what's called ketosis. Ketones are acids made by the liver from fatty acids. And what she did say is that when it comes to energy production or energy needs, 50% of your basal energy needs can be met by ketones, and 70% of the brain's needs can be met by ketones. Of course, that still leaves 50% of your basal energy and 30% of your brain's needs that cannot be met by ketones. In addition, your red blood cells and your liver cells can't use ketones as energy. They have to use glucose. And then she said there are, let's see here. Sorry. I know, it's kind of gross looking at my fingers. Okay, there are 3 ways that you can get into ketosis. One is from uncontrolled type 1 diabetes, which is not good for you. If you have type 1 diabetes, you have to have treatment, you have to have insulin. So the other one is through starvation and fasting. When you starve yourself or you fast, your body first uses glycogen stores and converts them to glucose. After the glycogen stores, it then uses your protein stores from your muscles. And then the third or the last, if your body doesn't get enough energy from the glycogen stores or your protein stores, then it converts to your fat stores and starts using your fat as energy. And essentially and then the third way to get into ketosis is through the keto diet. What the keto diet does is it tricks your body into thinking that it's fasting. So the basic premise of the keto diet is that once your body gets into ketosis, it forces your body to shift from burning glucose for energy to converting fat to energy. And of course, what that means is the body takes the fat and converts it to glucose. And then the other claim is that the weight loss is effortless and it lowers your disease risk. An example of or recommendation of consumption on the micronutrients with the keto diet is, well, this is the classic form, and this one was developed for people with or children with epilepsy, and it was created in the 1930s. And that was that these children were recommended to consume 90% fat, 6 to 8% protein, and 2 to 4% carbs. Now the modified version that is so popular right now recommends 70 to 80% fat, 15 to 20% protein, and only 5 to 10% carbs. And with the keto diet, they have the pyramid, just like we used to have for the standard American diet. At the bottom, the widest part of the pyramid, you would have meat, fat, and protein. And then next level of the pyramid, which is a little bit smaller than the bottom one, but you know how a pyramid goes. But the next level up is eggs and dairy. The one above that is green veggies. Then above that is a few non-green veggies, so like maybe your starchy veggies. And then above that's nuts and seeds, and the very tippy top is berries. But there's absolutely no grains or bread, no pasta, no sugar, no fluid milk. So, like a glass of milk from a carton. No corn, no beans, and no rice. If you contrast that with the Paleo diet attempts to shift from a hunting and gathering diet to an agricultural diet that's rich in grains and legumes. So the recommendation on the Paleo diet is 50% fat, 30% protein, and 20% carbs. They also have a pyramid. The bottom level is meats, and then the next level is fruits and veggies, and then the top of the pyramid is your nuts and berries. But again, there's no bread, no dairy, no corn, no rice. And this one actually also has no legumes. So I was a little confused on that part. But, the gist of it, though, is that there's no legumes. So if you're with the two diets, if you're talking about a 2,000 calorie diet, a day diet, on keto, you would consume 25 to 50 grams of carbs, and on the paleo, no more than 100 grams of carbs. But then also the keto talks about net carbs. So she explained that, net carbs are simply your total carbs minus the fiber, because the fiber has no calories. And so your total carbs minus the fiber is your net carbs. And so you count net carbs. Now, she did feel that the paleo diet is more healthful than the keto diet because it does contain more plants that give you fiber, prebiotics, phytochemicals, antioxidants, and plant sterols. So then she went over the... Okay, sorry, had to help Scott. So where was I? Okay, so she said that the evidence for the keto diet shows that it does decrease epileptic seizures. I can't read my notes. Up to 85%. About 85% of epilepsy patients have a 50% decrease in seizures, and 10 to 15% are actually seizure free. So that's a good use for the keto diet. But these patients who are put on this diet are also ones that don't respond to any medications. And these patients also have something called GLUT1 deficiency. Now, for short-term effects, it's meant. They say that it's best for weight loss. For the short term, it is the best way for weight loss, and there is moderate evidence to support that. It is an effective appetite suppression. It does give significant weight loss and gives favorable changes in body composition. There's limited evidence that with 6 to 32 cases, there is some evidence of prolonged or partial remission and some increase in the quality of life of cancer patients. It's most effective with when used with chemo for patients that have glioblastoma, which is a type of brain cancer. And then there is some evidence that it helps reverse diabetes because it helps reduce the symptoms. However, the keto diet increases insulin resistance. So if it's going to help diabetes, you can't go on and off. You have to stay on it, because as soon as you increase your carbs, because you're insulin resistance, and it's actually worse on the insulin resistance. You have a worse increase. But the risks that they found on the keto diet in the children who have epileptic seizures, there's definitely increased risk of cardiovascular disease, malnutrition and stunted growth, bone disorders, constipation and dehydration, GI disturbances, gastrointestinal disturbances, metabolic acidosis, liver abnormalities, kidney stones, and blood disorders such as anemia and neutropenia. Neutropenia has to do with the white cell, the neutrophils, which is a white blood cell. But then she talked to the long-term effects of being on the keto diet. And this is based on a 2013 meta-analysis of different studies. And there is slightly more weight loss than a low-fat diet. And now when they say low-fat, they're saying 30% fat. Of course, this weight loss summit's about the whole foods plant-based diet. And when you're on whole foods plant-based diet, we're talking under 15% fat. So, you know, apples to apples. It does lower your triglycerides. However, well, I should say it lowers your triglycerides and raises your HDL, which is your healthy lipids and cholesterol. But it also increases your LDL, which is your lousy cholesterol. So in essence, your total cholesterol increases. And doctors on the whole food plant-based diet recommend not only having cholesterol be below 200, they would like to see it below 150. So increased cholesterol is not good. And then long term, they found there's no difference in blood pressure, fasting glucose, insulin, A1C, or C-reactive protein. And those are all, related to, except for the blood pressure, it's all related to diabetes. That long term, there is no difference from other diets. And then when you're talking about other weight loss diets and versus keto, in 2 years, the weight loss became the same. So there's really no gain in weight loss. No gain to as far as weight loss. And then, let me see if I can decipher my notes. So then she talked about a 2016 meta-analysis of a trial that was men only. And they found that there was a loss of fat-free mass, which means loss of muscle. It was increased with keto. And then when they had a diet of 50% carbs and compared it to keto with 5% carbs for 4 weeks. And then they switched. So they were on 50% carbs for 4 weeks and then switched to 5% carbs for the next 4 weeks. And during the 4 weeks of keto, they only lost 0.5 kilogram of fat, but they lost the same 0.5 kilogram of fat on the basic diet in 2 weeks. They did another one in 2020 that included men and women, and then they put them first on a 75% carbohydrate and 10% fat, then switched it to 10% carb and 75% fat. And with that, the participants' eating was not restricted in any way. And when they were on the keto, they had an increase in glucose, insulin, and triglycerides, but they had impaired glucose tolerance, and an increase in loss of muscle mass. On the plant-based diet, they had a decrease in blood pressure, decrease in cholesterol. They had a decrease in energy intake, which means they ate fewer calories. And then they had an increase in fat loss. So they had a 51% grams of fat loss versus only 16% on keto. And then the 2020 U.S. News and World Report rated the best diets for the year, and when it came to when overall it ranked 34 out of 35, and then when it was evaluated on healthy eating, it ranked dead last. And that was because the amount of saturated fat and fatty animal products that were part of the diet. When it came to cancer, there was a review in 2019 for keto, and as I already mentioned, that it can slow some cancers when combined with chemo, but not all tumors respond to the diet, and some actually get worse. Some cancers actually get worse on keto. And the precept is that sugar feeds cancer. So if you lower your sugar intake, cancer doesn't get fed. They also found that being on the keto diet does not increase survival in advanced patients. There was a 35% increased risk of dying. And then that was 2019 review. In 2018, there was a meta-analysis of research, and they found a 32% increase in death of people who ate fewer carbs, the fewest carbs. The patients who ate 50 to 55% carbs tended to do the best, but there was a whole segment on the whole food plant-based diet as well, and the more carbs the more that plants that the patients ate, the more it decreased the risk of death. And that was very interesting to me. And so then, so right there, she gave a lot of evidence stating that the keto diet is not a good diet for you to be on, definitely long term. I mean, short term, yes, it may have some positive effects, but once you stop the keto diet, any weight that you lost, you gain it right back, just like any other diet fad. And, that includes whole foods, plant-based too. But the keto diet just doesn't seem to be too sustainable. Okay, so then she went on to talk about the Paleo Diet. And what it tries to do is to figure out what our ancestors ate. And what they ate was wild plants, wild animals, fish, and insects. But what they ate varied based on the time frame, where they were located, what season it was, their hunting and gathering skills, the tools, and the individual culture. What they didn't eat was packaged foods, deep fried foods, refined fats, oils, sugar, or salt, milk or milk from other mammals or products made from said milk, processed meats, or alcohol. Okay, which we all know those are all bad for us. And then, of course, there's the new paleo diet versus the true paleo diet. And so she did a little bit of comparison on those. The early diets, which would be the true paleo diets, consisted overwhelmingly of plants and insects and only small amounts of meat. But there was an increase in the last 20% of the Paleolithic time in meats because their hunting skills improved. However, they still continue to consume more plants than meat. And then she proceeded to compare a new paleo diet sample menu with a whole foods plant-based diet of 3,000 calories to see which one came the closest to the true paleo diet. The new paleo diet came closer than the whole foods plant-based diet on 4 nutrients, but the whole foods plant-based diet came closer on 13 nutrients. Still, her conclusion is that the new paleo diet does not equal the true paleo diet. Because with the new one, there's a much larger emphasis on meat for the protein, and the reason is that on the true paleo diet they had wild meat versus domesticated meat, and the wild meat has 6 to 16% less, or 6 to 16% fat, whereas domesticated meat has 30 to 60% fat. I saw a presentation one time that said, no, I read it in, I think it was the China study, that compared even chickens from the 1950s to now. And there are some chicken products that now have, or some now chickens now, these that have more fat in them than some of the leaner cuts of red meat. And that kind of shocked me because, let's eat chicken, it's lower in fat. No, it's not. Not no more, because of how agriculture or the meat industry has messed up the food. But then she also said that wild meat is of course free of any antibiotics or hormones, which our government, she's in Canada, so I don't know what Canada government regulations are, but here in the U.S., our government does not allow meat producers to use growth hormones. But the domesticated meat also has more saturated fat and lower omega-3s. She also then compared wild plants, which is what the true paleo diet included, versus the domesticated plants. And wild plants have 3 times more fiber, they're lower in sugar, and they have more concentrated levels of vitamins, minerals, and protein. And so, on the short term, she did say that there is some reduced disease risk because you do have lower body weight, higher satiety, increased satiety, increased lipids, lower blood glucose, higher insulin sensitivity, which is good, lower inflammation, and lower blood pressure. But in the long term, she mentioned that high meat diets, which are primarily animal protein, of course. It's animal protein, which is harder for your body to use. You get agricultural chemicals, something called, there's increased carnitine, which then gets converted to TMAO. And I forgot to look and verify exactly what TMAO is, but it is something that, well, let's just take a look here real quick, because that's important. TMAO. Okay. It's trimethylene N oxide. I think. Okay. This is from harvardhealth.edu. Oh, health.harvard.edu. And they're stating that in studies, researchers found that people with higher levels of TMAO in their blood may have more than twice the risk of heart attack, stroke, or other serious cardiovascular problems compared with people who have lower levels. And yeah, it's trimethylene N oxide, which is produced when your body digests red meat. And it looks like it does raise your risk of cardiovascular problems and early death from any cause. And then Dr. Joanne E. Manson, and I'll put a link to this article in the description box below. But Dr. Joanne E. Manson, the Michael and Lee Bell Professor of Women's Health at Harvard Medical School, she said, although we already knew that red meat has been linked to an increased risk of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and premature death in general, we didn't understand the diverse mechanisms involved. So that's why, if that's increased amounts of that, that's not good, and increases, your risk of death from heart disease. It also has the meats also contain endotoxins, environmental contaminants. She said POPs. Let's take a look at that. She just went so fast it was hard to keep up on notes, even pausing it. Okay, let's see. How am I going to search this? Let's do environmental, what'd you call them? Contaminants. POP. POPs are persistent organic pollutants, and they are toxic chemicals that adversely affect human health and the environment because they can be transported by wind and water. Most POPs generated in one country can and do affect people and wildlife far from where they're used and released. And that was through the EPA.gov. So I'll put a link to that article as well, just so you know where I'm getting my information. She also said that, which we all knew, that that meat contains heme iron, which is a less effective form for your body to use. Something called NEU 5Gs, and then nitrosamines. Yeah, nitrosamines. Sorry. Told you there's a lot of information. Had to change my battery. That's how much information there is. So where I say, okay, we're left with long-term, it decreases your, your nitrosamines. And then she was saying, well, okay, so with the Paleolithic diet, how much meat, or the keto diet, how much meat are you supposed to eat? So on a 2,000 calorie diet, that would be 2 pounds of meat a day. On a 2,800 calorie diet, 2.5 pounds of meat per day. And you got the experts saying the size of your palm, 4 ounces, the size of the palm of your hand. If we did 2.5 pounds or 22 ounces, that would be 7 pieces of meat the size of your hand. Wow. And then she ended up, her last comment was that when you're talking about how much meat you should eat, she referred to Walter Willett, and he is, an expert in nutrition. He is like, I guess he's the whole, the god of nutrition for the nutrition industry. And he said that the optimum amount of red meat should be 0. And then she concluded with, a lot of different organizations and their dietary recommendations. And, we've been hearing a lot about the World Health Organization. They do have a 12 steps to healthy diet, and the very first step is to eat a variety of foods, mainly plants rather than animals. The Canadian, since she's in Canada, she showed the Canadian plate. It's half vegetables, 1/4 grains and legumes and beans, and then 1/4 of the plate being protein with just a little bit of, with a mixture of plant protein and animal protein. But primarily, there's a little caveat to that protein section that says that the majority of it should come from plants. And then for your beverage, it shows water. And they don't recommend drinking any milk at all. And then she talked about the American Cancer Society, the National Cancer Institute, and there's one other prominent cancer organization here in the U.S., and they all recommend a diet that is rich in fruits and vegetables and lower in animal products. And she named, many others, and she actually concluded with saying that the founders or the developers of the new Paleo Diet have even recommended that, even though they created the diet, they recommended that the majority of your food should come from plants. Okay, sorry, again, I had to help Scott again. Lots of interruptions in this video today, but oh well, I got through it. So anyway, that was a lot of information. And I knew just from what I had heard about the keto diet, I just knew that it was not optimal. I did kind of a little analysis, or survey to find out, what it would be recommended for me to eat if I was on the keto diet. And it was something like 115 grams of fat per day. I don't know, some astronomical amount. And I saw that and I was like, my jaw dropped, and I'm like, my cardiologist would have a heart attack himself if he knew I was eating that much fat. Besides, when you really think about it, if you have to force your body into ketosis, and then you have to monitor your ketones to make sure that you don't go into ketoacidosis, which type 1 diabetics have to be really careful not to get into because it's very detrimental to your body. How could that be good? And my daughter's trying to tell me, she's all for it, done all this research on it, and she's trying to say, well, your body's meant to burn fat. That's why it stores fat. No, your body's meant to burn glucose. Because if it wasn't meant to burn glucose, when it used your fat stores for energy, it wouldn't convert your fat to glucose. Which, as Brenda Davis's presentation said, that's the third choice of energy for the keto diet. Or not keto diet, that's your third source of energy for your body. It's going to use glucose stores, and protein before it even thinks about using fat for energy. So her presentation today just fully reinforced my belief that the keto diet is very dangerous. As far as paleo, I didn't know a whole lot about the paleo diet, so I do know more. And, it might be a place for me to start, or a place for my husband to start. But it's definitely not something for the long term. And I know that the believers in the whole food plant-based diet, a lot of them are in business to sell the diet. And of course they're going to do everything they can to promote the diet because that's how they make their money. But they make a very good case. And if they didn't make such a good case, then why would the World Health Organization, why would they recommend more plants and less meat? Why would the, American Cancer Society, the National Institute of Health, I think it was American Cancer Institute, that's what it is. Why would they both recommend less meat, more plants? So that's why I'm really going to try working on eliminating animal products from my diet first. But first I have to get rid of, the fast food, get rid of the processed food, the processed carbs, processed meat, processed foods altogether. And then, I know I'll get there eventually. It's just going to take time, and because it's not something you can do right off the bat. I've learned that, and even my friend who transitioned to a whole foods plant-based diet 100%. He said it took him almost a year. So we'll see. And so with it being day 46, I think I'm finally committed to making the changes that I need to make. So I hope that you'll continue to follow along with me every day to see how well I'm doing, what progress I'm making. Comment, like, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you know when I upload my video every day. And in the meantime, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow.